My own daughter got married without inviting me, then told me my beach house was her wedding gift. I didn't cry, I stood straighter, my heart steady from years of sacrifice. Quietly, I placed a folder of deeds and contracts right on their polished table. They thought the story ended there, but it was only the beginning. Before I begin, tell me, how are you doing today? And where are you listening from? The March wind off the Atlantic pressed against the shutters as I eased them closed, the wood groaning like an old companion, the salt air mixed with the faint smell of cedar from the beams inside, and my coffee cooled on the counter while gulls wheeled above the tide. This house had always been more than a shelter. It was the spine of my family. Its shingles had grayed, its porch swing squeaked, yet every detail whispered memories. Polaroids from summers gone lined the hallway, Callista's sunburned cheeks frozen in time. On the mantel sat a glass jar of sand, labeled in her child's handwriting, "First Summer." I brushed my fingers across it and thought, this house had held me when nothing else did. Widowhood left me hollow, but the walls and waves refused to abandon me. Just outside, near the dunes, I noticed footprints not my own. Probably tourists, I told myself, though something inside said otherwise. I remembered Callista's voice. "Hair whipped by the wind, Mom. Someday I'll get married right here." I had laughed and promised, "Then we'll string fairy lights from the dunes." A home is where your promises learn to keep you honest. One summer, when she was 12, she gathered seashells into an arch near the water. "This is where I'll stand in white one day," she announced, and I tied the arch together with twine, pretending it was a chapel. I had taught her to swim in that same tide kick. Breathe, trust the water, then trust yourself. Later, I refurbished the guest room with white linens and a quilt sewn by my mother, preparing for joy I believed would come. Even then, the weight of responsibility pressed in property taxes due each quarter, flood insurance climbing higher. Sentiment kept the house alive, but discipline kept it safe. I recalled her telling me once, "You make hard things look easy, Mom." I'd smiled and replied, "That's just practice. Tradition isn't a photograph. It's a habit of love repeated on purpose." When Callista brought Lucien to the Cape for the first time, his polished shoes sank slightly in the sand, yet his eyes never softened toward the view. They darted to the roofline, the deck, the foundation, as if scanning a sales sheet. "Beautiful location," he murmured, before asking which side caught sunrise best and how close the dune fence sat. His language was all numbers appreciation, market value, inventory. No mention of laughter echoing off the walls or the way the porch light cut through storms. He quizzed me on septic permits, FEMA maps, even storm claims. I answered politely, but every question pried at the bones of the house, not the heart. "Properties like this shouldn't just sit for memories," he said one evening. I met his stare. "Memories are the only improvements time can't depreciate. If someone rushes to the money, they're late to the love." I tried to soften the edges over dinner, serving chowder and cod. He praised the seasoning, then pressed again. "Do you keep spare keys? Who else has them?" "Ever rent it out in the off-season?" He traced the lines of the sturdy locks with his gaze, noted the hardware like a locksmith at work. Callista laughed, brushing it off. "Lucien just reads real estate blogs non-stop." I answered what I wanted and deflected what I didn't, thinking, courtesy is free. Access is not. He smiled too easily and suggested optimizing the space. In my mind, I saw him stripping the walls bare of every echo of my husband's laugh. "This house has paid its dues," I said steadily. His smile tightened, "and it can start paying you back. Questions are windows. You decide which ones you open." That night, I stepped onto the porch and caught him photographing the property marker, a notepad half hidden in his pocket. When I appeared, he slipped it away, all charm returning. From the kitchen, Callista called, "Mom." He's just curious I wanted to believe her, but experience spoke louder. In my mind, I checked off what sat safe in my fireproof box deed, survey, insurance riders. I resolved to scan them all by week's end. No keys would leave this house without my reason and receipt. I turned to him gently but firmly. "Lucien, The ocean teaches patience." He smirked. "And luck favors the bold. Patience is power that doesn't have to announce itself." Much later, as I stacked mugs in the quiet kitchen, my phone buzzed. A photo appeared, champagne flutes clinking, a diamond catching the light. Callista's caption, "Big news," before I could type a reply. The tag vanished, like it had never been meant for me. My chest sank heavy as the tide at nightfall. The porch swing outside creaked. Dune grass hissed like whispers. I wrote the date on a sticky note. Start a log. Measure twice. Speak once, I told myself. Setting only the hallway lamp aglow. A beacon for a daughter I still believed would return. You can't stop a storm, but you can mark where it started. The next ping wasn't a hello, it was a photograph of a party I hadn't been invited to. The night stretched longer than usual as I sat in the kitchen, phone still glowing on the table. The photo Callista had sent me champagne flutes and a diamond ring burned in my mind. "We did a thing," the caption said. My thumbs hovered over the keys as I typed. What thing but the 3 little dots blinked, disappeared. Then nothing. Moments later, another photo came through. A crowd of smiling faces. Boston acquaintances I had met once or twice. Glasses raised in cheer. No family, not me. And before I could blink, the tag showing my name vanished as though I had never existed in her celebration. Older folks like me feel those erasures more than glitches. It's a door slammed in your face without a sound. I placed the phone face down, listening to the ocean beat its rhythm outside. "Lord, keep my temper cool and my spine warm," I whispered, gripping the mug like an anchor. Silence on the line is still a message. By morning, drizzle hung low over the Cape. I sat with coffee and glasses perched on my nose, scrolling carefully. Callista's account now read, "Some posts are limited, the velvet rope of the digital age," and my daughter had set it against me. In a local moms group, someone posted a blurred screenshot of the same celebration. "So happy for them, beautiful family." The word family cut sharper than the rain tapping on the window, because my absence was as loud as any announcement. Years in nursing had taught me to document when stakes were high, so I created a folder on my laptop labeled Callista May, dropping screenshots inside like gauze in a sterile tray. I phoned my sister, needing her clarity. "Don't chase the car," she told me. "Let it circle back." I replied evenly. "I'm not chasing, I'm watching the road." Meanwhile, Lucian's LinkedIn profile buzzed with congrats replies. Each one answered politely, but not a single word to me. I closed the laptop. "You can't teach respect to someone who thinks they own it," I muttered. "Boundaries aren't just fences, they're records." That afternoon, I dialed Callista. She picked up breathless, her tone rehearsed. It was spur of the moment. "Mom, we're keeping it intimate. I asked about the wedding. We're aiming for fall. Lucian wants it small." Her pause lingered, metallic in my ear. I pressed, calm but firm. Am I invited? The hush that followed felt like cold surf up my legs. Then came her answer. "We're doing immediate family and close friends. People who really matter." The phrase sliced clean, leaving no space for my breath. I said her name softly, but she rushed in to talk about healthy boundaries and our terms. I steadied my voice. "I hear you, and I want you happy. But happiness doesn't ask you to erase your mother." She went quiet, only the sound of her breathing holding the line. "When folks say, 'just a small wedding,'" I added, "sometimes what they mean is small enough to cut who makes us feel guilty. Intimacy that demands amnesia isn't love, it's control." Our talk slid further into language borrowed from therapy podcasts, independence, low contact, detachment, tools meant for healing turned into weapons. She said Lucienne believed I leaned on her too much, that marriages failed when mothers stayed central. The words sounded tidy, bloodless, yet every syllable nicked deep. I answered the way a nurse answers a bleeding wound. "You won't hurt me by building your life. You'll hurt yourself by thinking love is a zero-sum game." I knew the books she quoted. I had read them, not for argument, but for understanding. I chose not to throw the words back, because dignity is best worn like a clean, white coat. She suggested brunch the weekend after their wedding, an empty compromise. I won't beg for a chair at your table, I told her. If you want me there, you'll set a place. Wisdom is the body armor when language gets weaponized. Later that week, Lucienne texted from her phone. We'll be in the Cape, soon need to check dates. Would be beautiful for photos. Not a word about visiting me. Only the backdrop of the coastline, the house. Reduced to scenery. I typed a neutral reply. Let me know your schedule. Then forwarded the thread to my email and printed it. Paper doesn't ghost you. I checked the deed. Flood insurance. Tucked a fresh sticky note in the fireproof box. Title copy. He wasn't getting a key. Not without a receipt and a reason. If you want my porch swing for your pictures, I thought, you'll need more than a caption. Love asks. Entitlement announces. By dusk. I walked the perimeter. Dune grass rattling under gray skies. I photographed locks, counted keys, labeled folders, title, insurance, tax, survey. One new folder waited, empty, titled Evidence. My log grew with dates and quotes. Memory fades, but paper speaks. Over tea. I rehearsed words that wouldn't make me small, no. That doesn't work for me. Put it in writing. My mother's wisdom echoed, don't wrestle in the mud. You only perfume the dirt. Dignity. I realized is a choice you make before the test comes. By the time I turned off the porch light, my phone lit again, Lucienne asking if I could be a dear and send the keys for a romantic weekend. The morning fog had not yet lifted when I reread Lucienne's text. At first glance, it looked like any young man's request. Send the keys for a romantic weekend. But the next line made my throat tighten. Callista says the house is our wedding gift. A gift from me. Unwrapped without my consent, I steadied my breath and typed carefully. Are you saying the house is yours? His answer came fast, confident. Like someone reciting a contract. It's part of our new life. You've had it long enough. My fingers shook, not with fear, but with insult. I screenshot, emailed, and printed his words before he could delete them. I pulled the deed, survey, and tax receipts from my fireproof box, laying them out on the table like armor. He had shifted from could we to we will, the surest sign of entitlement. I sent back one last line. Put any request in writing. Be specific. His reply was chilling. Consider this the notice. If a favor comes with handcuffs, it's not a favor. By mid-morning, I called Callista, my voice steady even as my heart thudded. Honey, what did you tell him? She repeated words she'd borrowed from self-help podcasts' Independence. Fresh start. Healthy boundaries, I explained slowly, like charting for a patient access is visiting, ownership is evicting, one doesn't slide into the other. I mentioned the deed in my name, the flood insurance premiums I paid, the taxes cleared on time. None of that was vague. She tried to soften it. He thought you'd be excited for us. My answer was firm. I'm not against happiness. I'm against theft dressed like tradition. I let the silence linger until she finally admitted, we'd like to spend the summer there. My reply was measured. Boundaries protect what's tender. They don't hand it over. Love that respects you asks. Love that uses you assumes. By afternoon, Lucian called from a blocked number. His voice was cheery, like a salesman. Logistics are easier if you send the 2 main keys and the back door spare. He spoke of photo shoots, brand partnerships, making memories. My home turned into content inventory in his mouth. Then the pressure. We already told a few friends we'd be there. Don't make this awkward. I felt my jaw set. Awkward would be trespassing. I told him. He laughed as though I'd told a quaint joke. I opened a fresh notebook and began a key log photographs of every key in the drawer. Dated, documented. No keys left this house. His last push came slyly. You wouldn't want to start our marriage on the wrong foot. I answered cold. My 2 feet stand on my deed. Politeness is not a deed transfer. That evening, fog rolled heavy off the bay when the phone rang again. Lucian's tone carried false warmth. Let's be adults. Send the keys, and you can stay in Boston for a few weeks. Less sand for you, more memories for us. His charm dripped like syrup over a knife. We'll take good care of your things, he added. I pictured my mother's quilt folded under strangers' hands. He claimed everyone agreed the house belonged in young hands. I heard Verina's shadow in his words, her influence leaking through. I cut in sharp. No, He tried the oldest trick, shaming. Don't be selfish. I offered a line of compromise. You can visit under a guest license. 48 hours. Supervised, no overnight, no key custody. He scoffed. What he wanted was possession, not presence. You asked for keys to my life. I told him, I'm offering a doorbell. Concessions without respect are just rearranged losses. When the call ended, an email arrived. The subject line read, Occupancy Understanding, drafted by some advisor. The cheerful font couldn't disguise its intent. It labeled me a guest. Callista as primary resident. Exclusive use. Quiet enjoyment, cooperation from owner. It was an eviction in pastel ink. I stamped the file, do not sign, printed it, marked in red, and slid it into my evidence folder. My phone buzzed again. Callista's text. He's just organizing. Don't read too much into it. My reply was sharp. I'm reading exactly enough. I locked the back door, counted each key, and placed the folder beside my purse. Then I draped my mother's quilt across the chair nearest the door, as if she were standing guard with me. I whispered into the fog, I won't lose my home by being polite. By the time the lighthouse disappeared into the mist, my shoes were on and my appointment set to make this official. The town center was quiet under a gray May sky, the kind that smelled faintly of rain and damp brick. I stepped into Aldrich Boone's office, greeted by the scent of old books and strong coffee. Boone, retired judge turned lawyer, sat behind an oak desk, his glasses low on his nose. Without a word, I slid the evidence folder across to him, printed texts, screenshots, my deed and tax receipts, every scrap of proof I had gathered. He flipped through, nodding slowly, murmuring. Solid record. My pulse eased as he spoke. Deed holder controls keys. Family expectation doesn't override property law. His voice carried the certainty of a gavel striking wood. He leaned back, fingers steepled. Don't fight in their ring. Let them trip in yours. I caught the weight of that line. Documentation beats dramatics. Boone offered one last thought. The best lawsuit is the one they file against themselves. Quiet preparation is louder than loud defense. Boone drafted a template letter with deliberate strokes of his pen. Permission revocable at will. Occupancy conditional. His advice was steady. Never raise your voice. Never plead. Just point to paper. He handed me copies of my notarized deed, scanned insurance, and triplicate tax receipts. The weight of the documents felt heavier than anger. Don't threaten, he said. Let them discover they're boxed in. I realized his strategy mirrored my years in nursing act fast. Speak calm. Chart every detail. I folded my hands and said softly, I don't need to win arguments. I need to win records. Boone nodded once. Paper speaks when mouths lie. By afternoon, I was back at the beach house, rain tapping the windows. I drafted a letter, folded it neatly, and sealed it in a heavy envelope tied with ribbon. The envelope looked ceremonial, like a blessing for a wedding, but inside were only copies deed with my name, occupancy letter spelling out conditions, and a single line in bold. This home remains mine. I tucked the envelope into a gift bag, adding a crystal serving bowl for cover. The bait was set. Beauty hiding steel. I thought of my mother, who once wrapped bills in hymn books to keep creditors away. I smiled at the memory and whispered, if you treat a trap with respect, it feels like a gift. The sharpest blades wear velvet handles. At dinner in a polished Boston restaurant, I sat across from Callista and Lucienne. She beamed with excitement, he with smug triumph, while Verena Drager observed like a hawk. I placed the gift bag on the table. A wedding gift, I said, my voice calm. Something for your new life. Lucien's eyes glinted as he snatched the envelope, his hand lingering like it already belonged to him. Callista's cheeks flushed pink. I sipped my water, steady as stone. Verena's lips curled into a thin smile. She sensed layers beneath the ribbon. Lucienne grinned. Knew you'd come around. I returned his look with one of my own. I always show up when it counts. The moment you think you've won is the moment the ground shifts beneath you. Lucienne tore the ribbon, expecting a deed transfer. What he found were copies, legal terms, and my name stamped firmly on every page. He covered his confusion with a chuckle. She's dramatic, he muttered. Callista's smile faded as her eyes scanned the lines, mouthing my name on the deed. Verina's tone sharpened. This isn't generous, it's petty. I leaned closer, voice even. Petty is pretending a mother doesn't exist. My trap had sprung without noise, without shouting, only paper. Truth doesn't shout, it unfolds. I left before dessert, my shoulders straight, outside. Rain slicked the street as I stepped into the night air. Behind me, the envelope sat in their hands, a time bomb wrapped in ribbon. My phone buzzed. Lucien's text read, "We'll talk later." I typed back, "All talks in writing. Good night." I deleted his number, archived the thread, and forwarded it to Boone. The house wasn't a gift, it was a line in the sand. I whispered as I walked, "The house isn't a gift. The lesson is, leaving early is sometimes the loudest stay." As the rain struck my shoulders, I knew the real storm hadn't even started. The morning after the dinner, my phone rang sharp against the quiet of the Cape kitchen. Lucien's voice came through clipped and brittle. "What game are you playing?" he snapped. He accused me of embarrassing them with legalese, insisting family didn't need paperwork. His tone was meant to shame me, to paint me as rigid and unloving. I set the phone on speaker, laid it on a saucer, and filled the kettle. Brewing tea had always steadied me, and now it became my metronome while he raised his voice. I asked calmly, "Which clause bothers you, the one where I remain the owner, or the one where you don't?" His sputtering pause told me more than his words. He shifted to threats, warning that Callista would limit contact if I kept this up. He tried to equate love with compliance, as if silence was loyalty. I let the kettle whistle once before saying, "You raised your voice, I raised my standards. If respect isn't in the first sentence, it won't be in the fine print." He pivoted to demands. "Send the keys, or we'll proceed without you." I lifted the cup, the porcelain steady against the saucer. No rattle, no tremor. My voice stayed even as I read him my one-sentence policy. No keys, no occupancy. All permissions are written, revocable and temporary. He scoffed. "You're being dramatic." I sipped slowly before answering. Dramatic is asking a widow to gift her home so you can film it. In the background, I caught Verina's voice stage whispering about pressure and young hands, feeding his script. I ended the call with a clean edge. "Put your requests in writing. My lawyer thanks you in advance." Before hanging up, I added, "You mistook my kindness for vacancy. Calm is a kind of strength the loud never learn." Not long after, Callista's name lit my phone. Her voice was smaller than usual. "Mom." The envelope felt hostile. "Why don't you trust him?" I kept my tone gentle but firm. "This isn't about feelings. It's about fax deeds, insurance, taxes. Those don't change with moods." She repeated therapy phrases, trying to sound assured, but I pressed softly. "Boundaries aren't a battering ram. Honey," I asked if she'd ever looked at Lucien's browser tabs or his files. She balked. Why would I spy on my husband? I reminded her of a nurse's rule I had lived by. When symptoms repeat, check the chart. The word hung in the air. For a moment, she went silent, and I knew doubt had taken root. "Look at the paper that doesn't know how to lie." I told her, doubt is painful. Denial is expensive. By late afternoon, my phone buzzed again, this time with a photo from Callista. Lucien's laptop lay open on their dining table. The document title jumped out like a red flag, Cape Flip Q3 plan. I read the bullet points twice: bridge loan, quiet title strategy, content rollout, owner cooperation assumed. My pulse didn't race. It steadied. She texted, "Mom, did you sign anything?" I replied, "Not even a napkin." A second photo followed an email thread with Corbin Sloan. Talk of appraisal schedules and influencer packages. My heart clenched. Not from fear, but from clarity. I typed back, "You were never the bride in that plan, you were the bridge. A mask slips fastest when it tries to swallow the whole face." I forwarded every screenshot to Boone with the subject line, "Potential fraud and coercion advice needed." Then I typed a formal notice to Lucien: cease any representation of residency or access. All future communication via counsel. Attached were photos of every key in the drawer, time-stamped. No keys released, no license granted, to Callista. I suggested one quiet step: forward those documents to her personal email and a trusted friend. I heard the shift in her tone. Fewer defenses, more questions. When truth shows up, it doesn't need makeup, I told her. Decisions beat arguments every time. As the evening shadows lengthened, Boone's reply came, "We'll move fast. Do not engage except in writing. Expect pushback, almost on cue." Lucian's advisor sent an email CCing a boutique PR firm, threatening narrative management if I persisted. I typed 3 words to Boone: "I'm all in." His reply was brisk, a courthouse time, and a file number. I set my teacup down, wiped the counter, and laid my mother's quilt back in its chair. "You don't scare a lighthouse by yelling at the fog," I whispered. "Let them bring a storm. I'll bring a shoreline." When the printer finished spitting out Boone's filings, my phone lit with a news alert: an arrest downtown. Name withheld. By noon, the courthouse smelled like paper and rain. Aldrich Boone and I passed through security, our file pressed against my ribs. The clerk stamped our petition, one solid thud, and I thought the afternoon might stay quiet. Then a young reporter lifted her phone and whispered, "Is this the beach house case?" 5 minutes later, a blog pushed a headline, and the lobby began to buzz. Neighbors pinged encouragement. Church friends urged grace. A cousin texted, "Be careful." I told Boone. They wanted shadows. "I'm fine with sunlight," he answered. So is the law. Inside the hearing room, the air felt charged. Verena Drager sat in the last row, chin high. Callista kept smoothing her skirt, eyes shiny. Lucian arrived with Corbin Sloan and a smile built for cameras. His attorney held up my ribboned envelope like a trophy. "This demonstrates intent to gift," he argued, sweeping the pages as though ink might appear if he waved long enough. Boone rose, voice steady. "Those papers confirm exclusivity of title. No transfer, no keys, no consent." The judge leaned back, watching the performance flatten. Lucian stood to add, "Theater." "She's lonely," he said, "and confused about conversations." He didn't say elderly, but he let the word hover, waiting for applause that never came. I folded my hands and met the bench. Not him. Boone touched the folder, said nothing, and the silence worked harder than a speech. A reporter scribbled. The judge's mouth tightened. Callista whispered, "Mom," so low it barely reached me, and my spine answered for both of us. Boone tipped his head. I stood. "I'm a retired nurse," I said. "My charts kept people alive. These records will keep my home intact." I read dates and amounts, taxes, flood insurance, notarized deed, survey lines, renewal receipts. Then I slid forward printouts of Cape Flip Q3 plan, with emails to Corbin discussing content, appraisals, and an occupancy draft naming me owner, grantor, and them as residents. The room stirred. Lucianne flushed. Verena leaned in so far her pearls clicked. Callista stared at the page that carried my name. The judge addressed counsel first. "Do not lean on stereotypes in my courtroom." He turned to me. "Miss Mariner, your documentation is in order. Outside." Microphone sprouted. "Are you disowning your daughter?" someone asked. "Will you seek damages?" I gave one line: "I'm protecting what's mine. And no daughter should have to lose her mother over a deed." By evening, that sentence ran. Lucian's jaw set tight. Boone texted, "They'll double down." I boiled tea, folded my mother's quilt, and listened to voicemail a warning about stress and age. I saved the recording, named the file Fear 1, and slept with our folder on the chair. At midnight, the porch light clicked off. The phone lit again. Unknown. Message: blunt walk away or regret it. I archived it, forwarded to Boone, wrote tomorrow's plan on a sticky note logs, calm, then slept. The voicemail played again, its strained voice filling my quiet kitchen. "You'll regret this," it warned, followed by a muddled line of legal jargon I recognized from Lucianne's counsel. I replayed, logged the time, and jotted down every word. Then I forwarded the clip to Boone. His reply was crisp. "Keep everything, do not engage." I opened the news feed live ticker, scrolling one arrest in a financial probe. My heart paused before I called Boone. He confirmed Corbin questioned. Lucianne detained, devices seized. A paper trail doesn't just protect, it exposes. I noted case numbers. officer names, and the exact hour of custody. Accuracy is armor for people like me. If you plan for daylight, you don't run from the night. Clarity isn't loud, it simply leaves no shadow to hide in. By late afternoon, a news van idled near the dunes. A young reporter leaned on my fence and asked for a word. I gave one line, "I'm protecting what's mine." That was all. Later, footage rolled Lucienne escorted. Jaw tight, handcuffs low and quiet, no grand spectacle. The anchor's voice named fraud, documents, inquiry. I brewed tea, set 2 cups on the counter, and breathed in the steam. Justice didn't need my applause. Verina's statement scrolled next. Our family is devastated, with words like harassment and misunderstanding, but never truth. Callista's text came soon after. Can I come? My reply was an address. When truth shows up, you keep a seat for mercy too. She arrived with tangled hair, swollen eyes, carrying only a purse. No suitcase and exit without performance. On the porch swing, she whispered. I didn't know. I gave her the sentence I had prepared. You weren't meant to. She handed me printed emails, circles around phrases like exclusive use and quiet title. I photographed each page, sent them to Boone, then set the stack under a ceramic scallop, evidence and memory side by side. There's a difference between being fooled and staying fooled. Love isn't blindness, it's staying when the light finally hurts. At the pine table worn by years, I sliced sourdough, sprinkled salt, and poured tea into the good cups. Ritual softens edges. Callista read aloud, owner grantor, sell after refresh. Her voice cracked on cell. I told her why I used paper, not pleading. Nurses chart facts, facts save lives and sometimes homes. She asked for forgiveness. I gave her a bridge instead. I don't forgive manipulation. I forgive the manipulated. She nodded, eyes lowered. We spoke of practicals cards, passwords, a couch for safety. I gave her Wi-Fi, not keys. You're my daughter. You can rebuild here. You cannot run things here. Repair begins when truth can sit at the table without apology. The next morning, errands called. I reached for milk and chicken in the store when a neighbor chirped. We didn't see you at the wedding. Were you away? Heat crept up my neck. I set the carton down gently. I wasn't invited. I said silence followed, heavy but freeing. She stammered something about peace. Peace without truth is just a quiet lie, I answered, before asking about her grandkids. At checkout, whispers buzzed, but the clerk who had stood at my husband's funeral whispered back, good for you. I paid with my card, kept the receipt. I can carry both bags, groceries, and dignity. You don't owe the world a disguise for someone else's choices. That evening, the chicken sat on the table. Steam rising, Callista ate like someone tasting safety for the first time. We made a plan, freeze accounts, consult Boone, draft a neutral statement for work. No late-night calls to Verina, no explanations to those who fed on lies. I pulled the quilt over her shoulders. Tomorrow, we face his mother. Tonight, we rest. Strength is mercy with a backbone. Just before I turned off the kitchen light, my phone buzzed. Verina's name lit the screen, her message beginning. You've had your time. When I opened the door that October morning, the air smelled of salt and wood smoke. Verina stood on my porch, pearls glinting, her smile sharpened for battle. You've had your time, she said smoothly. Step aside for the young. She extended a glossy document, an occupancy understanding written in friendlier phrases. I read once, slid it back. My voice stayed low. A no trespass notice was filed, copies served, her lips pressed thin, and she tried to climb the moral ladder. It's about family, I countered. So is accountability. Respect isn't inherited, it's practiced. If tradition erases a mother, it isn't tradition, it's takeover. 2 officers stood a few feet back, a calm civil standby. I handed one a log entry with time, place. Her words, Verina muttered about public humiliation. Privacy ended when you turned my deed into a prop. I said she threatened to go higher. I gestured toward the dune grass, higher than the tide. After she left, I emailed Boone a summary and the body cam request number. You can't bully a locked boundary. When you stand on the law, you don't need tiptoes. By noon. Callista arrived with the crystal bowl and the ribboned envelope, dust still clinging from a garage shelf. She set them on the table. whispering. It sat there like something we didn't earn. I dusted the rim, leaving a ring of powder on purpose. "This house holds us accountable too," I said. She nodded. Quiet tears. No theater. She signed an affidavit confirming no promise, no transfer. Then we brewed tea in ordinary cups. The bowl would hold seashells again, beauty turned archive. Returning a thing isn't enough. You return the story it tried to change. Repentance is a verb with receipts. Late afternoon, Boone called us to the courthouse conference room. Verena sat stiff beside counsel. Corbin, subdued, had chosen cooperation. Boone pressed play. Lucian's voice bled through speakers. "Once we get exclusive use through Callista, we'll push a quick title strategy and flip." 30 seconds of arrogance filled the room. Papers shuffled, silence heavier than gavel. Boone slid stipulations forward: injunction, restitution of costs, written apology, retraction. Verena hissed. "Turn it off." I met her eyes. "I've been turned off for months. You recorded your plan in other people's hearts. This was just the echo." Power always trips on its own echo. Counsel signed. Boone filed the injunction same day. Callista received a written apology addressed to both of us. "No cameras. Just record. I refused extra money. Safety was the only currency I needed." Verena pulled back her hand when I offered silence instead of gesture. I told her, "I'm not interested in winning you. I'm interested in ending this." Closure is when you stop renting space to the past. At dusk, Callista strung fairy lights between dune posts. We set the crystal bowl in the center, scallop shells inside, the injunction folded beneath as its weight. We didn't plan a wedding, we planned a life counseling. HR notices, passwords, boundaries. "Rule of this house." I said, "Love, then law," both in writing. She repeated it back, steady. A gull cried, the porch swing creaked, and for once no phones buzzed. I kept the house. I told her. Now we keep ourselves. Freedom is courtesy with a spine. The next morning's mail slid under the door, a thin envelope addressed only to Callista, her name alone. Her choice, waiting inside.